Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself. I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin. Would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Well, off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
It sure is. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey. Facebook.com. We are live there on the Hockey Podcast. YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast, where we currently sit at 100. And Joel will appreciate this. Ken Dryden of subscribers, the number 29. Of course, great goaltender, one of the great goaltenders of all time. Played with the Canadians from 71 to 79. Became a politician as well. Still well-spoken within the community. Anyway, Ken Dryden is that. You can also subscribe to the audio shortly after the show is off the live air. We are here to recap. The Montreal Canadiens have come back and have tied this series with the Vegas Golden Knights. We say hello to Devin. Hello, Devin.
Hey, Dev.
What's going on? How are things?
Things are busy in my world. Ripping around back from the studio to home to people's houses. It's crazy. So I'm happy I can still find the time to come on and chat some hockey.
And we are grateful for that as well. And then joining us as well in the repping the Expos hat, repping the Canadian shirt, Sportsnet 650 producer, fellow BCIT alum, graduate. He has a fancy diploma like I do. Joel Gaudet. How's it going?
Yeah, it's as a lot of people would call it, it's a really expensive piece of paper I get to put up on the wall. I'm doing really well. No, I'm like I said when we got going here, Kev. I'm stoked that we get to talk about a Habs win. I would not be so thrilled to have to pick apart this team and talk about every little thing that went wrong if they didn't get a good result last night. But they did. They got the split they were looking for, headed back to Montreal, and we got a series, boys. Woo!
Yes, and of course, everybody, if you have questions or comments, pop them in there, and we will get to them as well. But yeah, let's start. What were you expecting in this series? I think we were a little bit all over the map ourselves. I actually went 7 games, being a little hot takey. I think Devin was chuckling at me, but I kind of. What were you expecting, Joel, coming into this series?
Well, I mean, honestly, yeah, I thought it's going to be a long series. It's going to be a 7-game series for sure. I think everyone kind of sort of thought that Vegas was going to like steamroll and just kind of overpower the Habs, right? But looking back, I mean, Montreal was 5-0-1 versus Vegas in every game that they've had before this playoff series. So I think coming into this series, they kind of had Vegas's number in terms of like how they match up and stuff. Going into Vegas, I think the Habs were just probably looking to get a split in the first 2 games, right? And I think if you ask any Habs fan or anybody that's, on the Montreal side of things, even if you're Canadian and rooting for Canada's team, I think that if you said, you're going to go into Vegas and you're going to get a split, and you ask them, hey, which one of the games would you like to win? You want to win game 2. So you can take that momentum, you can bring it back to Montreal, and that's where, 3,500 fan are going to feel like 35,000, swear to God, man.
They're gonna make it. Yes, they're going to make it bigger. Devin, what have you thought so far?
Credit to the Habs coming out hard in the first 2 games. The first period last game, and for game 1, they came out hard for the first 10 minutes. I fully expected different, to be honest with you. But I don't know why, because even in the Toronto series, they always came out hard in the first, and that was the detriment of the Leafs. But they're relentless, and they're gritty. It's funny because you would with the way that the coaching has been criticized, Deschamps, when that switch was made this year from Claude Julien, you didn't really know what to expect, and I think he's done a fantastic job deploying his troops the way that he should, and making sure that they know what needs to happen. I mean, you do have a bunch of vets on there with Perry and Eric Stahl that can help lead the way. Both of those guys have won gold medals and won cups, so leaning on them for the veteran leadership I think has been very beneficial. And talk about an underrated signing in Corey Perry in the offseason. He's been great. He wasn't really quite there in the first round, I think, because of what happened to Tavares, but you've definitely seen more of Corey Perry doing Corey Perry things within the series, and that's exactly what you need him to do, is to distract get the other team involved, get Vegas involved in the way that they really don't want to, which is being gritty, even though they do have a Ryan Reeves over there. So I thought last night's game was a perfect road game, and man, good good on Montreal.
Yeah, I miss B for Vegas's perspective here. Just going through this series with Colorado, in which it was pretty much wide open. Defense was optional. And then switching this Canadiens team, that you're seeing Tyler Toffoli, as I incite Canucks Twitter, blocking shots. You're seeing like Jeff Petrie with bloodshot eyes. I'm not sure what's going on there, but
okay, can we just talk about that right quick? Because like Jeff Petrie looks as bloodshot as like Charlie Sheen on a banner in 2011.
Yeah,
it looks like Bird Box Part 2. Like, what the hell's going on there? Like, and apparently his significant other made comments on social media saying that you should have seen him a week ago.
Oh,
like that is nightmare fuel. That is crazy. Like, and Brendan Gallagher's face is all busted up too. Like, they're looking like the hockey version of Mad Max out there. It's crazy. What grit and determination, man. Like, I love it. And playing with that mitt that he's got on. I don't know if you guys noticed this. I'm not sure if they talked about it during the broadcast. But Petrie broke his finger in the camera hole, right? And prior to the game, you see the Habs GM Mark Bergevin go in there and get a little piece of plastic and kind of try and work it into that camera hole to see if he can cover it up. Did you guys catch that?
No.
I thought that was pretty entertaining. But Petrie broke his finger in the camera hole, and now he's playing with a glove that I think I was trying to like pause it and stop and look, but I think it's like 3 fingers all together in one kind of glove hole, so he can tape them together and actually still hold the stick. Petrie being a right-handed shot, it's his right hand that he injured, right? So if it were your left hand and it's your top hand and the stick, you can kind of nurse it a little bit and use your right hand, your bottom hand a little bit more. But when you break your finger like that and it's your bottom hand, it's kind of tough to control the stick, right? So it's pretty funny to see that mitten looking glove that he was wearing there the other night.
yeah. And then you got Shea Weber has two hand injuries. They were mentioning that last night. And Brendan Gallagher, you talked about him. He's still playing hurt. Yeah, there's a warrior
squad for sure. But
with Colorado, the forwards were finding room. Like Mark Stone was able to break in, but they're not finding the same room. Even game one, yes, they ended up scoring. They ended up scoring 4 goals or whatever in game one. But 3 of those were from defensemen, and last night both goals were from a defenseman. The forwards are not finding that same room that they did against Colorado, and when they are, Carey Price's pants are getting in the way. Did you see that save? Like, I had no idea how that was ridiculous.
It's Carey Price doing Carey Price things. It's amazing. He's still one of the best goalies in the world, even though we were questioning him 2 years ago. Is he still that good? And he comes to play every game, especially the one it counts. And I think having Jake Allen be able to take a bit of a load off for him during the regular season definitely helped him to be able to be at this form that he is right now, which is world class. But Kev, you are right. The Vegas Golden Knights need to find a way to penetrate that defense and to instead of it just seems like once they're in the offensive zone, Montreal has been able to just shut them down. The majority of their goals have been off the rush, have they not?
No, the majority of their goals have been faceoffs.
Sorry. Yes.
To use the Vancouver Whitecaps, to use the Vancouver Whitecaps, they're scoring more goal term. They're getting more goals on the set play than they are on anything else.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
But I think that Vegas has a lot of shots coming in from the point that Carey can't see, and I think those have kind of snuck in a little more, right? For me, I mean, I think that if Carey can see it, he can save it, right? Like, I know that you want to try and get in front of it if you can, but like the one that snuck 5-hole on Petrie there last night, you could see he reacted late. He couldn't see it, and he kind of threw his arms up like, hey, guys, like, I couldn't see that one, right? But I think, yeah, if Carey keeps playing like this, man, like it's kind of crazy that even Marc-Andre Fleury, his counterpart in the Vegas net there, has a good backup behind him, Robin Lehner, even though he didn't have such a great season this year, but, across the breadth of his career. But just that little bit of load management for those goaltenders. It's funny how in the last 10 years, maybe 15 years or so, you see that difference from goalies playing, 70, 75 out of 82 games if they're healthy to, 50, 55 maybe max. And what a difference that makes. I mean, these two teams spend more cap on goaltenders than almost anybody. I believe they're both in the top 5 in terms of goaltender, what they're paying in the crease. Montreal's tops, obviously, with Pricey's big contract. But hey, I mean, right now, if you can get a goalie that can steal you a game or two in a playoff series like this, worth every penny, man. And you're seeing the dividends of that. Like, people laughed years and years ago about Price signing this contract, and you're thinking like, oh yeah, in the later years of his career. And then you see what Marc-Andre Fleury is able to do in Vegas. Like, he's been arguably a top 5 goaltender in this league for better part of 20 years. Like, I think we're just seeing that evolution of the goaltender where they're able to stay at that high level much longer because they're not, playing as many games. Like Pricey's coming into the playoff series or coming into the Stanley Cup playoffs rather. He was on the injured reserve, and then he came in and, that little bit of time off, and what a difference it's made.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're right. I think it's the goaltending position has certainly evolved. And you definitely need 2 goaltenders in the regular season. Unless you have a Price, a Fleury, a Markstrom, someone like that, you probably need 2 goalies in the playoffs as well. I mean, look at the Islanders. They've had to use both Varlamov and Sorokin in the same game a couple of times, even in this playoff. So, it is the goaltending position is fascinating like that for sure.
Especially when you say you have a Matt Murray who has shown that he can play in this league, and now the game has changed within 5 years, and he hasn't been able to keep up. So the goalies that have been able to be at the level that they are and stay at the level of top goaltenders in the world, it just shows that much more testament to those type of goaltenders too. So like the Vasilevskis, like Carey Price, Fleury, Markstrom, right? They've been able to adapt with the game, even though it's microscopic. It really is, because when you really think about it, Matt Murray, he won the cup. He was one of the reasons why they won the cup, and I believe he has 2. Does he not? Or just 1?
Yes, he does 2. He has 2.
He has 2. And both times he was utilized within those cup runs. So Goaltending is such voodoo.
Now, let me ask you guys a question. Did you feel that last night? Did you feel like Carey Price stole the Habs that game?
No, I didn't.
And I don't either.
I felt like while I even when Vegas made it 3-2, and it was the last couple of minutes, I didn't really feel like Vegas got a lot of great chances. Like
No.
I mean, it looked kind of flashy, but I didn't really feel like they got to the net as well as they could have, all things considered. So I don't feel like Price stole. I mean, Price made a couple of big saves. Don't get me wrong, but my thing with Vegas has been, and I think maybe the Vancouver series last year in the bubble revealed this. I just don't think they have as much firepower as everybody thinks that they do. Maybe it's what Nate Schmidt said is they've been Demco'd and they're still trying to figure it out. But I just. They get a lot of shots. They do create a lot of opportunities, but they just can't seem to put it in. And I don't think they have a killer instinct. As much as they're successful, I just don't think they truly have that killer instinct.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point, Joel, like he didn't steal the game, but overall, those big saves at those moments do matter. And that one save where he goes right across and it hits off of whatever, it doesn't matter how you do it. It's just the effort's there. And those, like, imagine what at that point of the game, what would have happened if that one went in. Right. Yeah. But Kev, you are right. The killer instinct isn't there for them. And that might be the detriment. And that might just be a psyche thing because they have been to the show. They have been to the dance multiple years and haven't been able to weather the storm properly.
Yeah. And down the middle, let me maybe toss this out. Who has the better centers? Even if Chandler Stevenson is in the lineup.
I mean, I would say Montreal.
Well, Montreal has a lot more depth at center. I mean,
yeah,
you got to remember there's two centers that would normally be playing on Montreal's lineup that aren't playing right now, and Jonathan Drouin and Jake Evans. Right? Like, imagine if those two guys are in the lineup. Like, Evans is a terrific penalty killer. He's great away from the puck, like shutdown kind of, guy that Montreal could desperately need to put on somebody like Mark Stone, who's one of Vegas's only, real big offensive threats, or Jonathan Marchessault or sniper style. But I think, having Drouin in this lineup, man, that would make a big difference. I got to think it's Montreal, and it's not just because I'm a homer. I just think they have Lehkonen and Armia that can play, right? That slide off, and they often play wing, but they're also capable of playing center. I mean, Josh Anderson's pretty good at taking draws. He's, I think his face-off percentage is quite high there. But yeah, no, I mean, for me, for sure, it'd have to be Montreal.
Yeah, it's just the depth. Their depth is there, and the versatility of even your wingers. Like an Armia, can just step in and be able to, and a Lehkonen too that can take face-offs whenever a guy gets kicked out or whatever. But to me, it's always about depth. It's not about your high end. If you have two great top line centers, then you can make the argument that they potentially have better centers up top. But depth wins every time, especially in playoffs. Yeah.
Another person we have who comes on, I think the biggest Cole Caulfield fan in the world comes on and watches us, and that's Kate Berry, who says, "Let's go, Cole got an assist." I just before I ask another question here, I just got to tell you, so far with Cole Caulfield, wow, it's been impressive, and I do think at some point there are going to be some Canuck fans that are going to make the argument about who they should have picked. Podkolzin or Caulfield. That debate may happen, Joel. I'm not saying Podkolzin's terrible.
I think that's going to be a fair debate down the road. I mean, I think a lot of North American hockey fans outside of the Vancouver market don't really know who Vasily Podkolzin is. But he's going to make the Canucks roster next year.
Yeah. And
I think he's going to turn a lot of heads. And yeah, I mean, I think in the same fashion that Cole Caulfield's kind of turning a lot of heads. Yeah, I can see that debate for quite a while. I mean, as a Canucks and Habs fan, it's a win-win for me. I'm happy about that. But yeah, that being said, I mean, it's pretty cool for sure.
Yeah,
Cole Caulfield, if you will, and seeing his parents super happy. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that I mean, we know that Cole Caulfield can do this. We don't know if Podkolzin will be able to sustain or even do well because we haven't seen him yet. Right. So until you're there, until you prove it, then yeah, if he doesn't do as well as everybody thinks he's going to do, then that'll be a massive issue. It definitely will spark the debate that they should have taken Caulfield for sure.
The other thing that I wanted Montreal to do, and Devin will back me up on this, Joel, if I don't know if you heard this, but I wanted Josh Anderson. I think we needed more from Josh Anderson in the series overall. But I wanted him to say hello to Ryan Reaves. Like, I wanted him to establish, like, we are not going to be fucked with in this series, and it's because of me. Now, I don't think that has necessarily happened. But what did happen last night that I think was a little bit of a subtle establishment was when Ryan Reaves hit Corey Perry in the middle of the body when Perry was down. Eric Stahl had something to say about that. And I think the pushing and the shoving stuff, I think all that nonsense and that shenanigans, that plays I think that plays more to the Canadians than it does the Golden Knights. Am I wrong there? Because you're not going to be playing Ryan Reaves is not playing in Montreal. They play Ryan Reaves only in Vegas. If we go to pattern. So if we're having pushing and shoving, and if it's going to get down and dirty, that seems to be a Canadian advantage, not a Golden Knight advantage.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that playing that rough and tumble kind of style of game is exactly what you said. It's part of what Josh Anderson does, right? Like, he's the prototypical power forward. He can chuck the knuckles and he can score your goals, right? It's not like Josh Anderson hasn't had his chances, because holy man, when he's on the rush coming off that right side there, or left side, excuse me, when he has the ability to just take one move and he's past the defenseman coming in. And when he cuts on goal, he's getting grade A scoring chances. I just think that either Marc-Andre Fleury or the Vegas coaching staff or whomever is kind of started to see a pattern where, he's rushing, he gets past the defenseman, and he's going to cut in front. And I think Marc-Andre Fleury's cheating a little bit in that way. So if he can kind of learn to, wheel around the net and try wrap around or look for the open guy afterwards, I mean, it's there for Josh Anderson for the taking in terms of getting going in this series. But, there hasn't been a lot of fireworks that way. There's a little bit of pushing and shoving. And like you said, you could see Eric Stahl was a little bit annoyed with what happened there. But you think that, one of these guys, Corey Perry or, like you said, Josh Anderson or somebody would kind of get into it and give Ryan Reaves something to do. But at the same time, I mean, you see Brendan Gallagher barking at the bench, but that, all 5'9" of Brendan Gallagher ain't going to go with however many feet of nasty Ryan Reaves is sitting at. So, I mean, if it's there, but I honestly, I don't mind that it hasn't been that scrum every single time or whatever, because I mean, I just don't think it plays in Montreal's favor, because Montreal's a high flying team or whatever, and you're not going to get those kind of guys off their game, right? And Montreal's rolling 4 lines deep too. That's the other thing. It's not like they have this superstar talent where you get them in a scrum and get your licks in on them while they can or whatever. There's nobody like that for Montreal, right? I mean, you could argue that you could do that to Mark Stone or, like I said, Marchessault or Patches or couple of the other Vegas guys, but I think it would play more so in their favor.
Yeah, it could go one of two ways. You could either, if you want to poke Ryan Reeves and tell him, what's up, that, he's not going to be pushing people around, that might wake him up, and that could be detrimental to the Canadians, what they want to do. But at the same time, you kind of want to make sure that that he is smothered a little bit and knows that he can't get away with stuff. And good for Eric Stahl. I mean, Eric Stahl's not a small boy either. He's 6'4", a little skinnier, but doesn't have as much meat on his bones. But he has that height advantage a little bit. So I think prototypical playoff hockey, having scrums after the whistle, you want to see it as a fan. But once again, it could go one of two ways, that you wanted obviously to be in favor of Montreal if you're a Montreal fan. But if you're a Vegas fan, I would want to see more out of Ryan Reeves and being able to get some of the star players off their game a little bit, especially a Cole Caulfield, who is a rookie. You might want to scare him a little bit and make sure he doesn't want to go in the corners. Make sure that he doesn't want to go hard to that net and get punished there, because obviously Montreal is a pesky team, and they're showing it, and their step. It seems like they're one step ahead, especially at the beginning of the game. So I think that I think it's more so in Vegas's favor that they play that game. But I mean, once again, you don't really have, outside of Ryan Reeves, there's not really a player like that. I mean, you have Mark Stone, I guess, too, who's a big body, and he can bang and crash if he wants to when he's flying out there. So you just got to make sure that they're going in the right way.
Yeah, I was just going to say Keegan Colasar sometimes gets himself involved in some stuff too. What have we thought of the Vegas crowd? Especially going in tonight, because tonight is going to be a crowd.
Well, I thought that was pretty cool that you saw Canucks coach Travis Green out there. There's a lot of stuff being said on Canucks Twitter that's pretty funny about Travis Green's just got heart eyes, and just watching Toffoli wishing he wasn't Jake Virtanen, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, no, I mean it's raucous for sure. But can I just say, and this is what my fiance, who she watches hockey casually or whatever, but she's watching the game or the pregame and it's going on and everything. She kind of turns to me and she goes, "Vegas is really extra, aren't they?" And I said, Vegas is the most motherfucking extra team in the NHL right now. Like, all their pregame shows, the nights, the girls with the sparklers, like the smoke in the arena, you can't really see the ice. Like, oh my God, can we just give it a break for like a hot minute? Like, just like, you're right here. You need to be down here. Just take about 20% off there, Super Chief, and then we'll be okay. I mean, holy Hannah.
It's crazy because it's always compared to a club atmosphere that's a hockey game going on in the background. It's almost not about the hockey, but it's about the excitement. And if you are a Vegas, that's very Vegas-esque, and they are. I love that they are very extra. They're a basic bitch.
I feel like this crowd has been nervous. I don't think that this crowd has been. I felt like game one, the start, they were nervous. I didn't necessarily. I also thought that they were a little bit nervous yesterday, and especially when the Canadians went up 2-0, that crowd went pretty quiet. And I've heard, and maybe it's just my ears, but I've heard some "Go Habs, Go" chants in that crowd.
Yeah, for sure. There was a video that came out on Twitter last night that was outside on the strip somewhere, and there was probably like a good 100 fans or so of Montreal just losing their shit, right? But that's one thing I did notice, that Kevin, like you said during the game, I think it was a game one where Vegas scored their second goal, and I think they went up 2-0. And they were announcing the goal, and the crowd was quiet. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I thought they were in Vancouver or something. Like, it was just weird. Like, I was kind of like, okay, like, are they going to, they're announcing the goal. You hear the little stupid slot machine thing go off. They announce the players and everything and this and that. and they pan out and nobody's cheering, nobody's waving towels. Like, it's just, they're just watching the game. Like, you guys not know what's going on? I know you're new to hockey and all in the desert, but it was kind of surprising. I'm not going to lie. Like, I was just like, man, if they were in Montreal, like the 3,500 fans would be losing their shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even Nassau, for the Islanders.
What a barn that is.
Oh, seriously. That's something that you would think they would get on board with, and they'd be able to pump up the team. And that was the biggest thing. That's one of the things that we talked about in our preview show was how different is it going to be between Vegas and Montreal when there's crowds, when there's a crowd in there, and even with 3,500 fans that are going to be in there. It's I believe that'll be very similar to the amount of noise and electricity because of the history of the Habs and because of the passion that the Habs fans do have. And that's something that Vegas is missing. And that's why they need to be extra, so that they can hype everybody up, because they don't have that history like the Habs do, obviously. And they are new to
I think
hockey.
that they got more riled up when Usher rang the fucking bell last night than when they scored their goal, like, going down.
Yeah.
It was 2-1, and nobody could give a shit, and they were more fired up about Usher and his stupid haircut. Like, it was pretty crazy, you know?
Yep.
But yeah, I think you're right, man. Nassau would be it'd be pretty cool to see, you know. I think that that would be the series to make, right? Like for Montreal to play Tampa and have a high flying kind of high offense, let's trade goals kind of style, versus say if Vegas and New York got in there and those two barns are going crazy and it's a cool atmosphere and everything, but they're like 1-0, 2-1 games every single game because they just trap the neutral zone and it's a boring style hockey. I mean, you know, I think it would be more exciting to see Montreal versus Tampa, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, one of these four teams is going to win the Stanley Cup, and you look at it and you're like, holy shit, one of these four teams is going to win the Stanley Cup. Like, that's kind of crazy, right?
I think, I mean, it's going to be interesting taking this to Montreal starting on Friday or starting tomorrow, how that crowd's going to react. Even with 3,500, I think there's going to be a lot of noise. And
the crowds outside of the venues too, right? Like after you saw the Game 4 sweep of Winnipeg, you see thousands of fans downtown Montreal. You think it's going to be any different during a game where they can, take a stranglehold of the series and stuff? I mean, if they win that, like, look out! Like Montreal is going to be, it's going to be pretty crazy to see, like, and be like, holy shit, that's Canada. Like, I know that, the states are doing their own thing and what have you, and they're a little ahead of us in terms of vaccinations or whatever. But like, to see that many people in the streets just losing their shit, and it's like, holy, and that's in Canada. Like, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool
Vegas,
to see that, man.
Vegas will definitely need to come out hard within that first 10 minutes and make sure that they dictate the game. Because if they don't, and Montreal does it within that barn, if they score again within the first 10 minutes, I believe it was 13 left in the first when they scored their first goal. That it's going to be the electricity and the atmosphere of having those passionate fans will just bleed through, and it might catch Vegas off guard. And if you really, really hope that if you're a Vegas fan that they do dictate that, because if they don't, man, they're done. Or it's gonna be hard to it's gonna be an uphill climb for sure.
Yeah, and I think in terms of crowd, if this gets to a Game 6, I wouldn't be surprised if there's another bump in terms of fans allowed in the stands. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 5,000.
Yeah, for sure.
Too.
Quebec does what it wants.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. But I mean, they're obviously approaching this with some safety. But but the hockey is important.
Inside the arena, they're doing safety. Outside of the arena, it's mayhem and chaos, and which is, I mean, could be maybe another Vancouver 2011-esque. Let's hope not, but I can see it definitely happening.
we'll talk. We have some Vancouver content to talk about in a little bit here. I just to tease that. But anything else on this series that we wanted to talk about?
Well, for me, I mean, looking ahead to this series, I think that it's very important, whether they're in Montreal or whether they're in Vegas, that the Habs get out to that early lead. I mean, what a difference it's made for that hockey club in this postseason, getting out to that early lead. Playing from behind against Vegas is going to be really tough because you know that they're that neutral zone trap, right? When they get up more, like 2 goals or more, making breakout passes through the neutral zone just isn't happening. It's really tough. They clog it up. It makes it really hard to play. Now, the Habs are 6-0 when they're leading after the first period in these playoffs, and they're 8-0 when scoring 2 or more goals. So for me, I mean, I think they've won 20 straight playoff games where they've scored 3+ goals. So they have to get out to that early lead, and they got to get Carey Price some goal support here. I mean, both of these things Montreal can easily do. You know, like scoring 2-3 goals against Marc-Andre Fleury isn't unheard of, right? But scoring 2 or 3 goals against Carey Price, that's a tougher task. And that's kind of why I asked earlier if you guys think Carey Price stole this game, because I think, assuming he's healthy, which he apparently appears to be, Carey Price is going to steal probably 1, maybe 2 games in this series. So if he hasn't stole them yet, that means they're still down the road, right? And that's something that I'm looking at, man. Like, there's a lot of firepower on the Montreal side that's just got to get going here. And if they can get those 4 lines that they continuously roll, putting a little more in the back of the net here, I really think Montreal can make a series out of this and take Vegas out. I mean, it's not unfathomable for me.
I definitely think the forwards. I think for Montreal, I think they need to get a little bit more into Fleury's kitchen, a bit more. I think to start rattling him a little bit more. I don't know if I think that Vegas defense is tough per se. I mean, it's a good defense. But I think that you can wear them out. I think you can be a little bit more physical. They need Josh Anderson to be more consistent, I think. And even Suzuki, I think he needs to be a little bit more consistent as well. And Brendan Gallagher needs to be the ass we all know and love. And I think you're right. I think they have a shot.
Yeah, they do. All those players need to, I think, have a different level. I feel like Gallagher, he's played pretty well. I just don't think he's getting the ice time that he needs. But I mean, last night he was at 15-11. The game before he was just a shade under, or right around 13.5, which I think is quite low for him. But I think that his hand has really deterred him from playing at that high level. And but I mean, he's weathering the storm well. He's being able to make a difference in that lineup. But I do want to see more out of Josh Anderson. I would like to see. Corey Perry, he's been better. Each game he just keeps on getting better and better. Paul Byron, he's been playing like he's. Oh God, it still hurts, Kev. It still really hurts.
Yeah. I mean, it was so long ago. So Flames fans don't get as rancored about Paul Byron joining the Montreal Canadiens on waivers. But
that's fuck you, Bob Hartley, you piece of shit.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us how you really feel, Devin?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've had a couple asshole coaches here in Calgary, so it's. I mean. We all know that Daryl Sutter is a class act, so hopefully that'll help going forward. But yeah, I'm happy for Byron. He's a good guy, good player, and he deserves what he's getting right now, and is a massive leader on that team. Obviously, being an A-cap.
Yeah. Now, okay, so you're sour about Paul Byron. Imagine being a Canucks fan and watching Tyler Toffoli doing what he's doing right now, or sorry, Kat Toffoli's husband. Because it's just unreal. The point streak that this guy's on, man, and the way he's been able to produce.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Like, for the price, for the term, like.
Well, we all know that
is going to stick in the craw of Canucks fans for quite a few years, for sure.
Well, you got to love Benning. He's a great GM. Yep.
Do we want to go here, or do we want to talk? Let's go here. I think we blended it well. Speaking of Jim Benning, but just to touch on Toffoli quickly. I mean, I just wonder if it was a better fit. Like I totally get why everyone in Vancouver is ragging on this deal right now. I totally get it. I totally understand that. But I also wonder in a few years if this deal looks, from the Canadians' perspective, may look like an overpay. And I also wonder if it was just a better fit overall in Montreal than it would have been in Vancouver. Do you think he would have produced this way in Vancouver?
I don't think he would have got the ice time to produce this much, to be honest. I mean, maybe this season with PD being out and stuff, like I can see Toffoli getting bumped up. He's going to play second, probably over top of Pearson for sure. So yeah, he's playing, second line, probably first power play minutes. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to give Jim Benning the benefit of the doubt anymore, right? But looking back, yeah, I could see like I've really tried to go out of my way to understand, like, at the time, and you had like X amount of dollars and you didn't think that could work. And I tried to understand his reasoning and everything. And I get it. Tyler Toffoli does, like you said, Kevin, he fits on the Habs a lot better. He plays a better role. It works better for him. But yeah, I mean, he's going to be one of those guys that you're looking back on years later and been like, shit, like he was good for those first couple seasons. Yep. Do I think it's going to decline? Yeah, probably. But I mean, even if you can get like 40 points out of a guy like that, which he's not, incapable of, even if he moves forward the next 3 seasons and he can get you 30, 40 points. Well, in the NHL nowadays, yeah, that's worth $4.5 million. Like, it is what it is. Like, it's fair market value, right? So I don't see it being like a bad deal moving down the road for the Habs, and I could see why Canucks fans in Vancouver are sour about it, especially when they turn around shortly thereafter and sign Jake Virtanen, and we all know how that's going for them. So
yeah,
I think it's a great deal for him, to be honest. He's only 29 years old. He has 2 more years or 3 more years left at 4.5.
Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah, so I think it's fantastic. Yeah, he'll decline. Like, he's not going to be, if he keeps this pace up for the next, even next year, and slowly has a decline or goes back to the mean, then he or regresses back to the mean. He will. I think it's totally worth it. And I don't know if it's a bet. Like, there's more depth for sure within the within Montreal's lineup that he isn't really relied upon. So it leaned on as much because they do have scorers within that lineup in comparison to Vancouver, where he'd be heavily relied on. I think, especially with this past year, Canucks had a hard time finding the back of the net, and having a Toffoli on your team, man, his grit, determination, and his high end skill. It's I think that would have been amazing for Vancouver to have, and Montreal's reaping the benefits for sure.
I think he also kind of played with a bit of a chip on his shoulder this season too, right? Like, hey, you guys traded for me, you guys made all these moves and everything in Vancouver, and then you don't re-sign me. Like, hey, fuck you, I'm going to go sign somewhere else, and I'm going to shove it up your ass. And he did all season long. And you're seeing he's still playing like that motivated player. And it's, I mean, as a Habs fan, it's like, okay, at least we got him. Like, I'm happy about that. Like, he's playing with a fire up under his ass and stuff, and he's doing it for one of my teams. But as a Canucks fan, it's kind of sits in your craw a little bit when you see, Madsen making his debut in LA, and we still have yet to see all the dividends that are going to come out of that trade. But yeah, it's a disappointing one for Canucks fans for sure. But good on Tyler Toffoli, man. He's ripping it up, and he's putting his name on the map for sure.
And I mean, as much as we're seeing the Tyler Toffoli impact, and I still think the biggest loss was Chris Tanev. And as from a Flames Canucks observer, I think watching the Canucks this year, you can really see where the Canucks missed Chris Tanev, and you can see where the Flames gained with Chris Tanev. I mean, that's not a statistic thing, but just his presence with the Flames and what was missing with the Canucks, I still think was a bigger loss. But that's
and if Gio does go somewhere within a trade or by expansion draft, then I don't see them going with another captain. If they're going to go with the captain, would be Chris Tanev in my mind. And it's either that or you go, 4-8 that are rotating, right? He's a leader on and off the ice. Everybody knows he was called Dad in the Vancouver dressing room. So, and within that roster, yeah, I think he would be definitely a person that you would want to have see a bigger leadership role within that organization if Gio does move on. Just
imagine Canucks Twitter when if Chris Tanev is named captain of the Calgary Flames.
Team Chaos. Let's
go. Like Joel's not even responding.
No, I mean, I how can you not love Tanny though? Like he's just a quality guy. He's a character, right? So, no, I mean, I think for Calgary fans, that'd be awesome if Gio does move on. But we'll see. I mean, I think he wants to re-sign in Calgary. But are they willing to pay the, what he's going to ask? I guess we'll see. With that being said, yeah, I think that I agree with you, Kev. I think the loss of Tanev was probably the biggest X factor on the Canucks season this year. Because of the way that Thatcher Demko played, you're like, holy shit, like the kid's obviously ready for a starting position. He's playing on his head. He's playing unbelievable. And he really did a fine job in stepping into the shoes that Markstrom's loss left for the Canucks. So, yeah, I would say the steady presence on the back end and having that kind of continuous playing partner for Quinn Hughes would have made a huge difference, right? Where Quinn Hughes played with a lot of different partners this year, and mostly due to injury, but it is what it is, right? So, but no, it'd be pretty cool, even as a sour Canucks fan, to see Tanny at least get a letter in Calgary. I mean, I think that's inevitable, right? So.
Well, I'm pretty sure he had a letter at the end of the year. I don't know at the beginning, but near the end, he had a letter. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I'm drawing a blank. Now, the other thing that has sort of been discussed in the rounds, and I wanted to bring this to us, is Elliot Friedman was on your station, Joel, on Tuesday on the People Show. Shout out to Dan, Sat, and Randeep. And suggested that the Canucks should consider trading the 9th overall pick to the Buffalo Sabres to acquire Sam Reinhart.
Let me stop you right there. I ain't trying to hear that noise. I am not trying to hear that. Like, come on.
Why not?
I mean, you wouldn't do it.
Traditionally, the Canucks have done pretty well with these later, not top 5, not top 6 kind of picks, right? They're hit and miss when they're in that more upper echelon of doing the draft. But this kind of range, man, where it's 9 to 16 or so, that's the Canucks golden range. They often get players that are really good in that kind of range. And even though Judd Brackett's no longer with the club, I still think that they're going to be able to pick something out of there and at least get something to show for this shitty season. Is the answer Sam Reinhart? I don't think so. I mean, the money that he's going to be asking, and quite honestly, are you going to trust Jim Benning with another signing? Especially for a signing guy like Reinhart. And he's just I'm sorry, but he's not really proven. He's been on a shitty Buffalo team for how long, right? I ain't buying. I'm selling that all day.
I want to hear what Devin says.
I like it, to be honest. He had a hell of a season when the team was so shitty. And to me, that speaks volumes. He's always had a high hockey IQ, and that was within his draft year. That was one of the reasons why he got picked so high, was because of his his hockey sense and knowing where to be and knowing where to go. I actually followed him a lot this year because of fantasy hockey, so I was able to see how he was doing, and I thought he played really well under the circumstances. And look at the other top end players like Ryan O'Reilly coming out of Buffalo. I thought he was done. I thought his career was slowly on the decline, but he had a new breath of fresh air coming out, and it's just a black hole within that organization that Buffalo needs to figure out sooner than later. Because I feel terrible for those fans. They're good hockey fans, and they don't deserve what has happened with that team and their team. But I think Reinhart. The only thing on Reinhart is his foot speed isn't quite there. So that's kind of his downfall. But as far as the 9th overall, I could definitely see that happening. But you said it right, Joel. Like the trusting Jim Benning with another signing, that might be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. I just think there's other holes in the Canucks lineup that need to be filled before they get a Sam Reinhart. That's my opinion, right? Like, I don't think that the addition to him to the Canucks lineup is going to like push them into that upper echelon where they can start competing for a cup. I just don't see it. I mean, I agree. Yeah, he did have a good season in Buffalo. Well, a better season for his standards kind of thing. But, I would rather trust the brain trust within the Canucks organization to make a great pick in their spot rather than make a trade for Reinhart and hope you can re-sign him, right? He's got one more year left, if I'm not mistaken.
He's an RFA.
And then he's an RFA.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, I definitely I don't trust Jim Benning to make a deal like that. Chances are he's going to overpay and give him too much term. It seems to be the going rate here in Vancouver. So myself, I don't like it. I'd rather keep the pick and see what you can do with it.
I believe he's an RFA this year with arbitration rights. Yeah,
he is an RFA this year.
Yeah.
This is what would I trade if I'm the Canucks, would I make the move to get him? I think from the Canucks perspective, they're probably too far. Joel, I think you're right. There's too much other stuff that they need to fix, and their cap situation.
That was the other thing.
Is a problem when you're with Sam Reinhart. Like, I think he'd be a good add, but it's just it means
if you're going to add, it means you're going to have to subtract too.
Yeah,
and where are you going to subtract on this Canucks lineup?
Yeah.
I really don't know. They're right up against it. I mean, they're going to get a little bit of relief with after next season. Then Luongo comes off the books, I believe, and then you get Furland on LTIR and a couple other things. And you free up a little bit, but I mean, to sign a player like that, you're going to fill all of that space with one player, and it's like I said, is he going to be the difference maker that your club is looking for in terms of like taking the next step? Probably not. Not for me, anyways.
If you could add, if you're looking at it, I don't think without giving up the 9th pick, you're probably looking at trading a guy like Brock Besser, and that just doesn't make sense from the Canucks perspective. You're trading a similar player for a similar player. So that doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. So you're not really improving your team. So it makes it tough for that. Now, I also, on the other hand, though, would say, like, in a big picture sense, and this may sound like someone may want to knock me in the head for this, but I would actually rather acquire Sam Reinhart than Jack Eichel right now. Because I don't think, but like you would, if you're getting Eichel, you're going to have to give up a hell of a lot. And I just don't know if Jack Eichel is that Connor McDavid guy that can carry a team. And if you're giving up so much, I don't feel that you're giving a step ahead. Where you're giving up with Sam Reinhart, like if you're the Flames as an example, you have the pieces that you can give up and still improve the team. So I just think that the acquisition, just based on acquisition cost, to me, it makes more sense to try to get Sam Reinhart over Jack Eichel right now.
That's a fair statement. Until you've done it, you haven't done it, like, realistically. And Jack Eichel, he's a hell of a player, but as far as carrying a team, I mean, he hasn't done it yet, but I think he has the skills to do it. And yeah, the acquisition cost for either one of them, for in comparison, Jack Eichel or Sam Reinhart, probably be better for your team to get Sam Reinhart, because it would be a lot lower than it would be a Jack Eichel, where Jack Eichel would be probably, be one of your top 3 best players, first
They're going to
round,
be asking
top
for them.
prospect. Yeah. So in comparison to Reinhart, which would be, God, it might even be a first and a high level prospect, at least depending on where that organization is at. If they're in a win now mode, that's a great cost right there. And Pittsburgh would probably do that. The teams that need to win now and have the window closing for maybe have 2 years left within that window, or even 1 more year left within that window. So I think you're right, Kev.
Yeah, like I'm looking, if Anaheim is the one, and if Anaheim is the one that ends up with him, they're giving up. They'll give up a lot, and I'm just not sure. Looking at that Anaheim roster, thinking about that Anaheim roster, that okay, you have Jack Eichel, that's going to change. I mean, franchise center, yes, but where's the rest of this team at? That's my, like, even if the Rangers do this for Jack Eichel, I'm not convinced that they're going to be that far ahead acquiring Jack Eichel at this point.
I think both of those teams that you mentioned there, Kevin, they're still, even if you ask their GMs, they're still probably 2, 3, 4 years away from competing, right? And that's, 2, 3, 4 years of Jack Eichel's prime. And then he's going to be, pushing 30? And then you're going to start competing and stuff? Like, I'm kind of with you in that, is Jack Eichel a great player? Yes. Can he, absolutely carry a team and put it on its back and let's see what we can do? I don't know. I'm with you, man. Sure, he's a great player, but I don't know if you trade away the future of your franchise, so to speak, and go all in, push your chips in the middle for a Jack Eichel when there's a lot of question marks, especially with the injury situation, because there's a lot of smoke, and when there's smoke, there's fire, and that's a weird situation going on in Buffalo right now with that.
Yeah,
I would say New York is ahead of Anaheim within their quote-unquote rebuild and when they can contend. They do have Panarin locked up until 26, 27 when he's a UFA. He's 29 years old. Chris Kreider's 30. Zibanejad's 28. Ryan Strome is 27. So they have pieces like Capo Caco, and Alexei Lafreniere. But at the same time, I think that I think the reason why there was such a shakeup within that front office was because ownership thinks that they are contending now and that they can contend now in comparison to Anaheim, where Anaheim, I think if they do get a Jack Eichel, then I think that does change the trajectory of where their team is at right now. And it really depends on who and what they give up too. Because I know that off the top of my head, Anaheim has a decent prospect pool. So they could give up a lot of futures, and maybe that's what Buffalo wants. But yeah, it's really hard to say that, if New York, if he does go to New York, that they won't be a contender, because I think they have the pieces there. They definitely have the back end with Jacob Trouba, Keandre Miller took a step this year, Adam Fox as well, Calder or Norris Trophy candidate. So they definitely have the pieces. Not to mention those goalies too. So don't.
Well, that's kind of why I thought New York was still another couple of years, because you give a guy like Lafreniere and those young guys like you mentioned 2, 3 more years to develop and really start kind of taking the reins and putting the team on their back and develop into hopefully these, great players like they think they're going to be. And that takes a little bit of the load off of a guy like Panarin and Zibanejad when, they're going to be 32, 33, not 29, 28 kind of thing. But the X factor in terms of the New York Rangers is, like you said, it's their ownership, right? And James Dolan is not, I don't know if you know about his track history with owning sports teams. The Knicks made the playoffs this year, but holy, what a dumpster fire his other franchises have been. So, do I trust New York Rangers to do anything right? And probably not. But they do, like I said, yeah, I think they got a lot of pieces, and they're going to be one of those teams in 2-3 years. I think that people are going to look at and go like, holy shit, what a lineup.
Well, my counteract to that is if you have your top end players like a Zibanejad and a Panarin just past their prime, are the Capo Cacos of the world over there, Alexei Lafreniere, are they going to be able to step up? Because we've had first round busts all the time. So that's the for sure. For sure who those players are, and if you're going to wait till past their prime, and especially at their cap hits, I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah.
That's the question. And again, Eichel's injury history too. That's the other thing that I want to know a little bit more about this, because he's saying one thing, the organization's saying another thing. And yes, the organization is a dumpster fire, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's an innocent party here, if that makes sense. So I would want to know more about that.
That's all he said, she said, like, realistically.
Well, we know if there is a deal to be done, that the other team, the team is going to make him go through quite a physical, I'd imagine, right? Like, and have to see all the reports and this and that and the other thing, and probably get second opinions as to whatever's going on, because nobody really knows, right? So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting situation there in Buffalo for sure. It's just like you said, Devin, I feel bad for their fan base, right? Because I know a lot of Sabres fans, and they're just like wearing the paper bag over their head like they're Toronto 2007 right now, and it's just not very good.
Yeah.
Oh, to wear paper bags in the stands again, coming soon. I leave it. We'll leave it there for that. We want to move on here. Jason Spezza has signed another deal with the Leafs. He said he would. The direct quote, I'm not sure, Devin, was it $7.50 he'd play for? He'd play for even less. He just wants to win a cup.
Yeah. And those are the type of players that you want in your team. I think that's fantastic signing. The Corey Perry-esque signing that Bergevin did in this past offseason. The veteran presence that he had a great playoffs. I thought he played amazing. He was very noticeable pretty much every single game. So the fact that he wants to be there says everything to me, that he wants to win a Stanley Cup and he believes in this team. So I love it. I think it's fantastic. I hope that Jumbo Joe comes back as well. To a certain extent, I think that he definitely helps that locker room out a lot, and brings that leadership along with the Spezza. And who knows if Simmons is going to come back, but Jason Spezza, I'm very happy to see him back in the white and blue.
Yeah, I think it's a good signing for Toronto for sure. Spezza's that kind of consummate professional, one of the veterans. He's been to his cup final, right? And for the price, for sure, you're definitely getting more production than you're paying out for. So it's good in terms of the books for Kyle Dubas. But real quick is, do you think Jason Spezza is going to go down all time as a Toronto Maple Leaf or an Ottawa Senator?
He'll do a one-day contract, I think, in Ottawa. I don't think he's going to be retiring as a.
That's been a hotly debated question I've seen on social media as of late. Jason Spezza, especially if he wins a cup with Toronto, go down as an all-time Leaf, but I just can't see it happening for me. He's a Sen.
Yeah, he's a Sen. I think that too. I think he'll sign the one-day contract. The other thing with the Leafs to touch on here as well is the possibility. James Myrtle wrote in The Athletic this week that Zach Hyman may not be back, which for the Leafs I think is a huge loss if that's the case. And I think for some team, if they get him at the right deal, he will be a good ad.
He'll be good at no matter like if you're adding a Zach Hyman to your lineup, you're in a win now mode, and you will overpay for him, and that I think that's where he sees his value within himself. Sure, he loves being a Maple Leaf, but I think that he depends on the opportunity that he has within that certain team where he would be in that lineup. But he is a guy who can go up and down for your lineup for sure, and I could definitely see him getting potentially 5x5 easily enough on the open market with a team who once again is contending now because there's a lot of miles on that body, and he has been hurt a couple times. So I think that buyer beware for sure, depending on where you see your team, because he can't play with those top end players and produce at a good level. But it's as far as a loss for Toronto, it would be a massive loss. And man, I don't know if they would be able to replace him, because he is an irreplaceable player. The amount of tenacity he has, and yeah, it would really suck being a Leaf fan to lose him. And if you do lose him, then you want to sign a Nick Foligno, very similar type of player that has that grittiness and can play in your top six for sure.
Any thoughts, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, like Devin said, I think Hyman's going to be a win now type of player. He's a difference maker for sure. And if you want to keep him, you're probably going to overpay. I mean, it is what it is, right? He's a good player. I mean, this Toronto lineup for me, it just has so many question marks, right? Like, can you replace a guy like Joe Thornton with somebody else or whatever? I know you want to keep him in the locker room and what have you, but can you fill those kind of depth holes that I think we saw exposed this postseason for Toronto? I think that's really what they're looking at, or what at least they should be looking at, trying to do here in this offseason. If they can add some more depth players that that can contribute and shut down and be defensive kind of specialists, right? Because you got a very top-heavy Toronto lineup, obviously, and you don't have so many shutdown guys on the back end that can really keep up with the other team's best, right? So I think Zach Hyman kind of gives a little bit of that offensive grit, and he also can play kind of a shutdown role where he's really good at playing away from the puck. So it'd be a great addition for Toronto if they can get him back. But would I be surprised if he signed for big money somewhere else? No, probably not.
Fair.
Yeah, and it also depends if a Mikheyev, if he can take a next step, because he had a bit of an off year this year, and when he came onto the scene, he was amazing. He's very, very similar to Zach Hyman too, who could have that actually probably more offensive skill than Zach Hyman. I think Mikheyev is still trying to figure out the North American game and trying to figure out what makes him successful within this league. Along with the Pierre Engvall, I think he's underutilized, and I think if he can take a next step too, that could definitely help within the depth of that lineup. But yeah, you are right there. I think they are missing a bit of a shutdown role for the bottom six.
Yeah. I think that was one of them, a bit of a revelation with what happened with the Leafs this year for sure.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to just quickly touch on is the WHL had announced other than 4 teams, home openers are being released. The schedule will be released on the 23rd. The Giants, their first home game in Langley Event Center will be against the Prince George Cougars Friday, October the 8th. And I know the Abbotsford whatchamacallits are here. But I do think can I give the shout out, support junior hockey in BC. You've the Dub and the BCHL, they're still good hockey, so make sure you still support that as well. If you can spread that dollar out, I mean, if that makes sense, I'm sure everyone here backs that up a little bit. Waiting word on the Hitmen, Silver Tips, Tri-City Americans, and the Victoria Royals, what their home opener will be, but it's going to be nice to see the WHL have their home, no bubble, and fans in everyone's stands, and Connor Bedard's of the world doing the WHL tour before he gets drafted in 2023. And
yeah, that'd be cool too. And not to mention the AJHL here in Alberta as well. So support local if you can, and support the local teams that are around you, because they do have good hockey.
Yeah, I really hope that we see that kind of influx when, these leagues and everything kind of get going, assuming that we're allowed to in October and things are, back to normal, knock on wood, obviously. But I mean, I really hope we see that big influx and that big rush to go and see junior hockey and support those local leagues. So we see, like, holy shit, we really missed this. Like, not only the diehard fans, but just casual fans that want to go see a hockey game twice a year or 3 times a year or whatever. They're all going to want to go right away because it's one of the only things they can do, and they missed it. And I really hope that momentum that we're going to see at the beginning of the season for the WHL, the BCHL, the AJHL, that kind of rolls forward, and they just kind of keep that momentum going, and they keep the interest in the game, right? Because we've seen a little bit of weaning in the past couple of years in terms of junior hockey fandom, we'll say, in Canada. But hopefully this they come out with a bang and they keep that momentum going for sure. It'd be awesome to see.
A lot of rivalry games: Seattle, Portland, Saskatoon, Moose Jaw, Regina, Prince Albert, Red Deer, Edmonton, Lethbridge, Calgary. So there's a lot of rivalries to start. Kelowna, Everett, Brandon, Winnipeg. So there are a lot of rivalry games to start. So that's a good way to start, I think. Get the rivalry parts going. Wanted to close this out. So Ryan Pinder yesterday on Sportsnet 960 was telling a story, and you can go on their website.
We've been waiting for this.
And he was talking about being at Amped. He was talking about going to a gym in Calgary, a new gym, and he said that there was a man with a very friendly face, long beard, and took him through a bit of a exercise situation. And Ryan said he's coming back to this gym. That gym was Amped, and the owner of this gym, funny enough, is Devin.
Amped Advantage. Me and my fiance own Amped Advantage, and it's actually a funny story how everything kind of came about. If you heard it on the radio, I will. It's very So, what happened was Kaylin and I, my fiance and I, were moving into a bigger apartment. We hated our couch. Kaylin, she showed me this couch multiple times on Facebook Marketplace, and she's like, I really hope that when we move, we can get this couch. And fair enough. It was like, okay, yeah, well, great. And so we messaged her, went to go pick it up in an alleyway, and lo and behold, it's Ryan Pinder's wife that is selling the couch. And I look at the guy, and he's just got this mop of a head of hair. Like, his hair is ridiculous right now. He looks like a Sideshow Bob. It's amazing. Let alone he has the 70s mutton chops, and he had a Fu Manchu mustache. So he just looks like just a degenerate human being. But I talked with him, and I said, hey, listen, you have to come try this out. And he's like, oh, no, this sounds ridiculous. So what we have going on here, I'll do a little plug, is it's electric muscle stimulation. So you put on a suit, the suit contracts your muscles for you. Your body cannot handle more than 20 minutes twice a week because of the percentage of muscle fibers that you are firing. In conventional training, just regular weightlifting, you're using about 30% of your muscle fibers. Within the suit, using EMS, our technology, you're firing over 90% of your muscle fibers. So, and firing it randomly between your type 1 and type 2 muscle fibers. So anyways, I was explaining this to him, and he thought it was just voodoo, witchcraft bullshit. And I'm like, no, man, I promise you, if you come in, try it out, then you'll see what we have going on. And so EMS is very new to North America. We've been kind of trailblazing the market to get the word out there. And so I was happy he came in. Dean Boomer Malberg, his co-host on the morning show, asked him if basically he just had a battery pack, put on his nipples pretty much. He's like, no, it's legit and I like it. And I'm trying to get Rhett Warner in as well, because I really think that he would be a beneficiary of the technology that we do have, because he does have a bum shoulder. If anybody listens to Fan 960, Rhett Warner calls his wife the shoveler because he can't shovel anymore within his injuries that he's accumulated over the years being NHL defenseman. So yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm happy he's going to be coming back, and I've been it's just a random coincidence that Facebook Marketplace interaction turned into Ryan Pinder coming in and checking us out at Amped Advantage in Calgary.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Too funny.
Yeah, honestly, the interaction that Dean, Boomer and Pinder had talking about this was actually really, really funny. So I would go check it out. June 16th June 16th podcast. And it's just after 8:00 after they do a segment called "Fuck I'm Old" or "F I'm Old." Go check it out. It's really funny.
Cool. All right, check that out as well. Joel has a team time, so we got to go because we I don't golf, but we're golf. We support golf on the podcast, so golfing is a priority. So Joel, how do we follow you?
I'm on Twitter at radio_God.
And then how do we follow you, Devin?
At Gordhouse09 on Twitter.
Sean is Beardy Canucks 03. Tyler is TNOBLE. Schneidz. Chris is Schneidz, SCHNEIDZ. I am KEVOLE. Podcast_hockey. Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast. YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to the audio as well. We will be back this weekend to recap game number 3 in Montreal. Vegas Golden Knights, Montreal Canadiens. So we'll see what happens there. Keep an eye out for the schedule. We're still trying to work some things out, but we'll talk to you all. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.